Did you know that hidden in a single, almost forgotten verse of the Bible, there's a story about an incredible supernatural battle? We're talking about an archangel squaring off against the devil himself over the body of Moses. So today we're going to crack open this cosmic cold case and see what it's all about. Okay, so this is it. This is the verse from the tiny book of Jude that kicks everything off. It's this brief, tantalizing mention of a massive event. It's just dropped in there almost as if the author assumes you already know the whole backstory, which, of course, just makes you want to know more, right? And that's the big question, isn't it? It's what scholars and theologians have been digging into for centuries. What was this fight really about? Why on earth would the devil want Moses' body? And maybe most importantly, what can we learn from how it all went down? Let's investigate. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'll just go look this up in the Old Testament. Well, hold on, because you won't find it there. It turns out Jude was actually referencing a story from an ancient Jewish text called the Assumption of Moses, which is now lost. It was a story his original audience would have been totally familiar with. And here's a super interesting detail. The original Greek word for disputed isn't really about throwing punches or a physical fight. It suggests a legal argument, a formal debate. So you can forget a big epic brawl with swords and fire. You should picture something more like a tense, high-stakes courtroom drama, a cosmic lawsuit, with the devil as the prosecutor and the Archangel Michael as the defender. All right, to get to the bottom of this, we've got to rewind. Let's go back to the scene of the crime, so to speak. We need to look at the final moments of Moses' life, as they're recorded back in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, so here's the mystery in a nutshell. On one hand, Deuteronomy is crystal clear. God personally buried Moses in a secret spot that no one knows. But then, Jude tells us there was this huge dispute over that exact same body. It makes you wonder, right? If God's will was to keep the burial a secret, why was the devil even able to contest it? Well, the most straightforward theory, and it makes a lot of sense, is that God was playing defense. He hid the body as a kind of preventative or prophylactic measure. He was trying to prevent a problem before it even started, and that problem was the temptation for the Israelites to turn Moses' tomb into a shrine for idol worship. And look, this wasn't just God being paranoid. The Israelites had, let's just say, a bit of a track record with this stuff. Remember the whole golden calf incident while Moses was literally up on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments? And then centuries later, they started worshiping the very bronze serpent Moses had made to save them. So yeah, the temptation to worship physical objects was a real, recurring issue. So if God's whole game plan was to prevent idolatry, it becomes pretty obvious what Satan wanted, right? He wanted to promote it. But that still leaves the question, what was his legal argument? How did he try to justify his claim to the body? This brings us right back to our cosmic courtroom. The devil, playing the part of the accuser, couldn't just show up and grab the body. He had to present a case. So what on earth was his argument for why he had any rights to the body of God's chosen leader, Moses? All right, scholars have basically boiled it down to three main theories. First, there's the legal claim. The idea here is that Satan argued that since Moses was a murderer, remember, he killed an Egyptian, his body belonged in the domain of death, which the devil claimed as his own. Second, the idolatry plot. This is the one we've touched on. Satan wanted the body so he could reveal its location and tempt Israel into idolatry. And third, what we can call the eschatological block. Satan may have known that Moses was destined to reappear with Jesus at the Transfiguration, and he was trying to stop that future event from ever happening. So, we've looked at all the theories about why they fought, and they're all pretty fascinating. But here's the thing. The most important lesson from this entire story isn't the why, it's the how. I mean, it's the question we all want to know, isn't it? You have a showdown between an archangel and the devil. Who came out on top? But here's where the story takes a turn you might not expect. Because Jude's point is that this isn't really a story about winning a fight, not in the way we usually think about it. There's no glorious final blow. The real reason this story is even in the Bible, the whole point of it, is to teach us a profound lesson about how spiritual authority actually works. The method is the message. This was Michael's entire response. Faced with the ultimate accuser, the archangel says just three simple words. The Lord rebuke you. That's it. No epic speech, no angry tirade, no power struggle. Just a simple, powerful judicial statement. Now, Jude makes a point of saying that Michael dared not bring a slanderous accusation against Satan. I mean, think about that for a second. This is the highest ranking angel, a being of unbelievable power. And yet he shows this incredible restraint. He doesn't flex his own muscles or use his own authority, even though he was totally in the right. And that is the absolute key to this whole thing. Michael understood the divine order, the chain of command, you could say. He knew that the only one with the ultimate authority to judge and sentence the devil was God himself. So he deferred. He appealed to the supreme judge of that cosmic courtroom. And get this wasn't some new strategy Michael just came up with on the spot. We see this exact same phrase back in the Old Testament, in the book of Zechariah. There's another courtroom scene where Satan is accusing the high priest, and the response from the Lord is nearly identical. The Lord rebuke you. Michael was operating on a well-established principle of divine authority. So, an ancient dispute, a cosmic courtroom, what does any of this have to do with us today? Well, Jude brought it up for a very specific reason. He was using it as a powerful example to warn against false teachers in the church who were arrogant, who rejected authority, and who spoke badly about things they didn't even understand. This one little story really packs a punch. It teaches us at least 3 huge things. First, true spiritual authority doesn't come from our own power or cleverness. It comes from submitting to God. Second, victory in spiritual battles isn't won with our own anger or accusations, but by appealing to God's perfect judgment. And finally, and this is the best part, God's sovereign grace and protection always get the last word. No accusation the enemy throws at us can ultimately stand against that. In the end, Michael's appeal was successful. Moses' body was buried in secret, just as God intended. And that undiscovered grave, wherever it is, serves as this silent monument, not really to Moses, but to the absolute authority and sovereignty of God. And that leaves us with one last kind of challenging thought to chew on. If the Archangel Michael, the most powerful angel in creation, showed that much humility and deferred to God's authority, what does that teach us about how we should handle the battles and the accusations in our own lives?